Perfect. All right, friends, let's get this Futurecast started for the year of the dragon. So most of you know me and a few of you are new to class. So I'm Marielle and I'm your host, your teacher, and your cosmic coach. And of course, my job is to help people like you make better decisions by being aligned with the geocosmic energy patterns across time and space. So the work that we do involves science and strategy and intuition. So let's see what 2024 holds for us today. So questions that will come up for us this year as we explore the themes are our definitions around a couple of key concepts. First of all, our definition of God is changing. What do we think God is? Our definition of consciousness will be changing. Do we think that it's connected to the brain, to the body? Do we think it's nothing at all? Is it connected to some other part of us that is invisible or ethereal? Our definition of the soul, is it real? Is it not real? What are the scientific studies around electromagnetism now telling us about the concept of the soul? What is the place of the human in a world of AI, technology, soul consciousness, extraterrestrial consciousness, and other worldly discoveries? What is our definition of money? The definition of money in a world that is exploring things like digital currency, right? What is money even if we don't hold it in our hands anymore and it's not backed by anything? Who's in charge of it? Who decides what it is? Who turns it on and off with a little button if we hold it in our hand? What is freedom? That's right. How free are we really? What is the definition of liberty? And also, is there a difference between convenience and freedom? Another important definition we'll be exploring are innovation ethics as science and technology and discovery moves forward and new inventions are going to be coming rapidly within the next 20 years, as we'll be discussing. What are our rules, our rights and wrongs, our laws and regulations around the things that we are creating and how we are using those new powers? And what is the she economy, meaning the rise of feminine power and economic independence and how that is reshaping the modern Western world? And what will that mean for finance, business, and also gender dynamics? So we begin here in January, where our theme is power. So January really begins with this power shift that hasn't occurred in over 250 years since the founding of the United States. Pluto, which is our celestial symbol of power, death, and rebirth, shifts into the constellation of Aquarius, which is the archetype of genius and innovation, and also rebellion and independence. And it shifts there for the next 20 years, from this year, 2024, to 2044. And it's bringing with it the age of revolution. And so it's urging our society to examine our definitions of freedom, sovereignty, and innovation. So we're asking ourselves questions like, are we free? What is liberty? Do we belong to ourselves? Are we sovereign? And what is possible? And are we enlightened? The last time this rare Pluto alignment occurred, it brought the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the establishment of the land of the free, the formation of the United States. And the time before that, when this rare alignment occurred, it brought with it the fall of Rome, the democratic republic upon which the philosophical framework of our country is modeled. And the time even before that, when this rare alignment occurred, it brought the Roman Civil War, which ultimately resulted in the end of the freest society Western civilization had known up until that point in history. And the time even before that, when this alignment occurred, it brought the establishment of Rome, the most significant epicenter of intellectual enlightenment, scientific innovation, artistic and cultural expansion, and civil liberty in the ancient world. So how will we choose to turn this page in history? meaning what are we going to let our story be over the next 20 years from 2024 to 44? Will we choose to become a Renaissance society, using modern innovations in science and technology to create never-before-seen inventions that improve our collective human condition and encourage education of the masses through our digital networks, exploring beyond borders in space to understand our place in the universe, and spreading the idea of individual importance, power, and autonomy to the darkest places in the world where things like suffering, slavery, and second-class citizenship still exist. So the question is, will history remember us as a Renaissance society creating an epicenter of enlightenment? Or will we become a destroyer society? Meaning, will we use modern innovations in science and technology to kill ourselves through the invention of toxic chemicals in our foods, air, water, and biological warfare through lab-created diseases and synthetic pharmaceuticals, bombs that can blow up our own atmosphere, and creating artificial intelligence machines that are smarter than us and replace us? Will we restrict digital information networks so that people only have access to the ideas that reinforce ideological narrative boundaries of controlling majorities? And will we market track and trace innovations like digital IDs and digital currency under the disguise of social conveniences that ultimately catalog each individual into an online number with an on-off switch? So will history remember us as a destroyer society, creating the gods who killed themselves? It is interesting that 2024 is a presidential election year in the United States. The land of liberty certainly does have a lot of decisions to make. And even if you're not an American citizen, what happens in the United States does set a worldwide precedent for human rights, standards of living, the idea of personal freedom, and the principle that power should rest in the hands of the people. The Declaration of Independence is one of the most important documents of enlightenment in world history. It is the founding paperwork of the most enlightened, empowered, and enabled society in world history. And it's based upon the principles that were modeled before it on previously the most enlightened, empowered, and enabled society in world history. America really is the modern Rome. So we must carefully examine our definitions of freedom, sovereignty, and enlightenment, because our answers will determine which version of Rome we are becoming. Are we becoming a Renaissance society, a warring society, or a destroyer society? Our Rome will become the world's Rome. It's also interesting that Pluto is a symbol of power and death and rebirth. Pluto reveals where we source power from. So during its 20-year stay in the archetype of Aquarius, Pluto is revealing that our power lies in science, technology, innovation, revolution, and freedom. As a death symbol, Pluto reveals the form of the destroyer, meaning that if we don't use those powers well, meaning science, technology, innovation, revolution, and freedom, those will be the very same powers that kill us. As a rebirth symbol, Pluto reveals that these are the powers that have to be transformed and alchemized into careful balance so that life can continue to perpetuate itself. Which leads us to the Hindu time cycle of the Dwapara Yuga. In the Dwapara Yuga, the ancient Hindu texts, they describe these yugas, or large-scale time cycles, and they call our current era the era of energy. The ancient Hindu teachings predict that our present yuga, or time cycle, is going to be defined by new discoveries in science and technology that irrevocably alter our understanding of what we call energy. So this new understanding of energy will change our everyday life as well as our spiritual concept. It's predicted that during the Dwapara Yuga, we'll learn how to transcend time and space and distance, such as inventing instantaneous travel, like we witnessed in some of the extraterrestrial tic-tac phenomena videos. We might finally discover how to implement Nikola Tesla's universal energy power concept, and we might better comprehend how to utilize energetic correspondences like telepathy, Reiki, and remote viewing. So This shift of Pluto into Aquarius starting in January 2024, it ushers in the Dwapara Yuga, and it also foretells of a battle for humanity over the next 2 decades that's strongly linked to these themes of energy, aliens, and AI. How are we going to define what is human? How are we going to define what is real? So, as technology and AI, virtual reality, psychedelics, alternative energy, and extraterrestrial presence become kind of like increasingly unavoidable parts of our everyday reality, how are we going to make human rights decisions? How are we going to make decisions in medicine and law, employment, and ethics? How will we define real bodies or real experiences? Also, that human mimicry of advanced extraterrestrial technology that's being developed by our government may lead to innovations in energy resources, possibly things like free energy that Nikola Tesla had always envisioned. But how will that affect our global investments in geological energy resources, like the oil industry, coal, gas, and the billions of dollars in jobs that are associated with those industries? How are these new discoveries in energy going to shift our global economy? And furthermore, how might scientific research into the study of energy also transform our understanding of spirituality? So, neuroscience, psychedelic research, and consciousness studies are already starting to prove the existence of the electromagnetic soul. How might the presence of something like the proof of the soul or the discovery of extraterrestrials permanently change or maybe even validate the teachings of the world's oldest religions about the role of humanity in the cosmos at large? I think that 2024 really launches an era where power belongs to the pioneers and those who are willing to do something different and to take a stand to make a change for a new and better tomorrow. So those who want to serve as the guardian angels of goodwill can help us make quantum leaps into a future that really redefines our practical role and spiritual significance in the cosmic ecosystem. But we've got to be equally warned of the antichrists of innovation, who might be tempted to use these newfound discoveries against us. I believe that the greatest unforeseen dilemma of the Dwapara Yuga is innovation ethics. How are we going to define the right and wrong use of these newfound discoveries? And how will we define the boundaries of the phrase, just because we can doesn't mean we should? There's two things that will likely cause economic chaos in the time ahead: mass unemployment caused by AI replacing human jobs, and mass poverty caused by digital currency replacing cash. If we make machines that are smarter than us, that are self-teaching, self-sustaining, can replicate any known information on the internet, and can perform basic human jobs through automation, then overnight we may lose the need for teachers, assistants, writers, artists, and accountants, and so on. How would we feed, clothe, house, and care for millions of humans who are suddenly jobless? We got a taste of this over the past year in the creative industries when AI was caught stealing artwork from real-life artists on the internet. ChatGPT is copywriting content for all sorts of writers. And AI was caught creating songs using the voices of real performers that were never invented by them, such as songs by Drake. And that's not to say that AI is evil. It's certainly not. In fact, it can be a great human companion. The question is not whether or not we should continue to innovate. The question is more, what are the boundaries and the rules and the appropriate use around our innovations so that we don't run into trouble with the things that are supposed to help us progress into the future? Another thing to consider: if we eliminate cash in favor of track and trace digital currency, then overnight we lose the gig economy. The babysitters, the freelancers, the side hustlers, the maids, the construction workers, the garage sailors, the lawn guys, the pet sitters, and gone with the wind is the idea of ever giving your grandchildren money from the tooth fairy. So how would we suddenly feed, clothe, house, and care for millions of humans that can no longer afford their lifestyle because there's no way for them to make an extra buck? Furthermore, with the track and trace digital currency, every single cent you ever make will be taxed. So there will be no such thing as stashing cash under the mattress for a rainy day. And who will be in charge of your digital bank account? Would it be an AI robot run by your anonymous government? How could you trust the motive and ethics around an invisible entity that now has the power to shut off your entire livelihood with the press of a button? Chinese and Canadian governments have already adopted forms of digital currency and were admonished in 2020 and 21 by the press for shutting off the bank accounts of citizens whom they labeled as disobedient in their own opinion. Other areas of innovation ethics involve the loss of intellectual privacy with the implementation of brain chips, such as Elon Musk's Neuralink. Your thoughts will no longer be your own. As we develop the ability to copy your consciousness onto a microchip, every skill you've learned, every memory you've had, and every thought you think could be transferred into the cloud. So, what are the ethical challenges around who on the internet has the access to your innermost intimations? Who is literally in charge of your brain? And perhaps most frighteningly to consider is who has access to turning your brain on and off? These are just a few examples of why innovation ethics is the most important discernment in the Dwapara Yuga, and it will separate the pioneers of innovation from the antichrists of innovation. For a great account of this topic, I suggest watching the movie Oppenheimer, which came out last year. There's some really excellent intimations about innovation ethics. So, on to other things. In numerology, 2024 is the 8th universal year. It brings big power shifts, power surges, and explores the importance of how we use our power. So the 8th universal year also signifies money, meaning what do we actually value? And what is our definition of money, such as cash versus digital currency, and also transformations in entire economies. It also brings manifestation, meaning that we are concretely able to make our ideas come true, aka innovation, and make money from it. So let's be sure to be on the right side of history by manifesting and monetizing in all the right ways. With these themes in mind, let's jump into the personal exploration of the month-by-month energies. So January brought us the theme of power, revolution, energy, and success. So what was happening in January is, of course, the major shift of Pluto into the innovative sign of Aquarius for the first time in 250 years, meaning it's the first time this has happened since the founding of the United States, just like we discussed, and it has connections to the establishment, rise, and fall of the Roman civilization. So this current era is going to last 20 years from this year to 2044. And it really represents a shift away from corporatocracy, traditional lifestyles that just really suck the life out of us, and classic materialism. And it's inviting us to desire things like freedom and individuality and originality. So what you may have experienced in January was a feeling of redefining what success means for you. I called it Judgy January because all of these planets in Capricorn were making us go, is this idea of the American dream, right? Money, hard work, success, being on 24/7, 365, climbing the corporate ladder. Is this really what's going to make me happy? Is this really working for me anymore? So you may have been really exploring if the old ways you have found success and happiness were still relevant for you, and you may have felt like you were still getting unstuck from last year. The other thing that some people may have been inspired by in January is the idea of adding a side hustle, an entrepreneurial gig, or more flexible work to add some breathability and freedom and originality into their finances and their professional life. And for a lot of people, there may have been a big shift towards putting more of their business online in January. So I think a lot of people were feeling like really ready for a lifestyle revolution, that sense of like something's got to give. And radical authenticity. We're all adults here, not giving a fuck, right? That attitude in January. For many people too, an emerging interest in energy, right? If they've never kind of explored those things before, there was a curiosity like, what is spirituality? What are these mindfulness practices? What's happening with my dreams? Maybe something really is out there, right? So that will continue to develop as the year goes on. Okay. So popping in. And I'll say this too, for those of you in the class today that have not yet done your 2024 annual planning session, that should have been done in January, but if you haven't done it yet, there's still time in February. It still counts. It's always important to see how these themes apply to your individual mathematics for the year ahead. So if you've not yet done your annual planning session with me, you can still squeeze it in. I promise not to tell anyone you're running late. All right. So February, where we are now, of course, the year of the dragon. So the big themes for this month are passion and secrets and clearing out some old 2023 karma. So February is where it kind of starts to feel like the new year is really happening. January was a slow start. I asked a lot of people in January, like how they felt about the new year, what they thought the new year was going to be about. And most people said it just felt the same. I totally agree. The year of the dragon, which is the lunar new year happening today, doesn't happen until February. And also another important astronomical point, embolic, doesn't happen till February either. So it really is the beginning of the spring season. So if you felt like January wasn't quite the new year, you weren't crazy. February is feeling a lot more aligned. So the year of the dragon brings the energy of passion and flair, power, leadership, authority, ambition, risk-taking, a lot of high dynamics. It's interesting because the dragon is the only mythological character in the Chinese zodiac, right? So all of the other characters are natural animals, but the dragon combines a mythical and an earthly quality. So it really brings that sense of superior spirit to earthly practicality, right? The human and the divine, or the natural and the divine combined. And it really is considered the apex predator of the Chinese zodiac. It is the most powerful. Nobody's afraid of the year of the rabbit. Nobody's afraid of the year of the rat. Nobody's worried about, the chicken, right? But the year of the dragon is something to be reckoned with. There's an energy of majesty, conducting oneself like a king or a queen, as if they were a mythological god or goddess, stepping into their authority and power, calling on the divine or their higher self or something higher than them for their sense of inner authority. It also brings this imagery of the alchemical Ouroboros. So many of you have probably seen in Eastern drawings, it often is depicted as a snake eating its own tail, sometimes a dragon eating its own tail, right, in a loop. Many people have seen that picture and not known what it's called. It's called the Ouroboros, and it's one of the infinity symbols, meaning powerful beginnings and endings, right? Reincarnation, that the circle of life is beginning and ending again. So this year, there could be some big endings and some big beginnings, right? But that no matter what, life always goes on. The question is, how do you want to step into living your life? Now, there's the warning of the poison dragon. Because the dragon is the apex predator and it deals a lot with our sense of inner authority, stepping into leadership roles, using our power, being fearlessly confident about wielding our intentions, the question is, what place within us does that power, those decisions come from? Is it coming from our ego or is it coming from our heart? If it's coming from our ego, then the dragon year can end up just making us look like a real asshole, right? The poison dragon. Somebody who wants to be famous just to be famous, who wants to be in charge just because they like bossing other people around, who simply wants to get their way in the family or a relationship, who's willing to step on other people in order to get to the top. That would be a poison dragon kind of attitude. Of course, we want to be the jade dragon or the nice dragon, which is the one who functions from the heart or the soul and wants to lead for all the right reasons. So keep that in mind. February is more fast-paced and free-spirited than January. Again, January was a very slow start. And there's this sense of you're finally doing what you love, whatever that is, in work, in life. And especially for the people who are single, there appears to be some hope on the horizon for romance. We do have the passion points on February 21st and 22nd when Venus and Mars unite. So there's a sense that whatever state love has been in lately, that some good things are on the way. Valentine's week, admittedly, is a little janky. There is possibly some drama or jealousy around Valentine's week. Interestingly, the week after Valentine's is more lovable. So, maybe if it doesn't go so well Valentine's week, you could reschedule it for the week after. It might be better for you. There's also a feeling this month that we are clearing out the karma from summer of 2023 till present, meaning especially challenging events that occurred around July and December 2023. So last summer was tough for a lot of people because we had a double retrograde between Venus and Mercury, and it brought problems in relationships, problems with money, and some problems with kind of like the classic male-female dynamics. So what we may discover is that any letdowns from that time period of summer 2023 may slowly start to get smoothed over and washed away during February. And notice especially if there were any important letdowns or dramas that happened in July or December, you or that other person or situation that were involved, you may find that, oh, there goes the karma. It's starting to wrap itself up beginning in February. Another interesting thing for February has to do with secrets. You may find out some little juicy tidbits that perhaps you weren't supposed to know, friends, family, coworkers, whatever it is. And that'll be interesting. I've already had some clients who've come in for their February sessions, and they found out all sorts of interesting things about what's going on with those around them. And for some people, this can also mean you're having a bit of a suspicious mind towards new beginnings, especially if you got burned last year in that double retrograde, kind of the July, August, September and onward. So even though things are looking up for you and going well, you may still have a bit of a negative outlook from last year, kind of like, I don't know what's coming around the corner. So see if you can put that aside and believe that the best is on its way. All right, friends. Before we skip ahead to the next thing, just checking in the chat. Are we good so far? Everything is making sense? Yes, hopefully, yes, no, maybe so. Awesome. Cool. Great. So March, our themes are vision, love, dreams, and creativity and spirituality. March is really smooth and easy. So March is the natural new year. It's the spring equinox. Again, January for most of us rarely feels like the new year because it's kind of off season here in our hemisphere, right? We're actually still in the dead of winter when January 1st comes around. And then we don't start getting spring until kind of that new moon here in February. And then really spring hits us in the middle of March. So the natural new year, life may really feel like it's bringing those new energies to you right around the spring equinox. And also relationships are going to bloom in March. We've got a lunar eclipse in the sign of love and romance. So again, especially for those who are single, there might be some hope in February, and then it could really begin to bloom in March. And for those who are in a relationship, this can represent the improvement or deepening of your relationship, which is really great. There's also a lot of hopes, dreams, and visions that are taking flight. So I encourage you during March to use your imagination. Everything starts with imagination, right? Everything, every invention, every opportunity begins with what we imagine is possible in our own minds. So don't ever think that what you're imagining is silly. Don't write it off. The extent of your imagination will be the extent to which you're able to create and manifest in your life. So keep your vision open. There may also be a time for creativity, like a lot of surrealism, art, creativity, spirituality, psychedelics during that time, things that kind of take us out of the everyday practical state and shift us into an expanded state of consciousness. Why? Because that helps us see possibilities, right? So enjoy those activities in March and know that let life be sweet and full of possibility, right? It's okay to be in a place of hopefulness, and it's okay to be in a place of enjoyment, especially I find in our American culture. We think it's not okay to just slow down and enjoy life and be happy. We think we always have to be like doing something or being practical and productive in order to be considered valuable or successful. March really challenges that idea. It says, human being, like where's the being in it, right? The beingness. Allow yourself to discover you. So April, April and May are two of the most important months of the year. So we have a lot to say about this. April brings the energy of the miraculous, divine interventions, sudden changes of events, the unexpected windfalls, the things we didn't even know to ask for that could come our way. Some of these wonderful miracles could also be linked to money for some people, to money. I'll tell you why here in a second. And there's more about the alchemical Ouroboros from the dragon that's happening in April. So the first thing is that in April, there's kind of this sense of there's a Mercury retrograde, there's an eclipse. So I will say things that you've rushed headfirst into will come back to bite you a little bit in April. This could be something that you ran headfirst to, ran in headfirst to last year. Could be something that you recently started, but it's saying that the rush has gotten the best of you. So you're going to need to slow down. Situations might force you to slow down, really get into the details or really analyze who you become involved with, go back, check things out, take it slow. And you may find a particular connection to March of 2023 for some people, meaning that you tried to get something started in March of last year and maybe it like stopped, it didn't quite take off, but you're revisiting it, or something did take off in March of last year, but it's almost like it's been pre-accelerated and there hasn't been enough consideration or boundaries around it, and now it's overwhelming, so you've got to review it. So slow down if things are going too fast. The other interesting thing has to do with word karma here in April. Words or actions for you or someone else that have not followed the rules or proper etiquette or upheld duty are totally going to get called out for accountability, especially when it comes to love and money. If you or someone else hasn't been entirely forthright or hasn't acted right, it's going to come to hit us in the face in April, right? And for some people, those actions go back as far as last year, meaning if you had an experience in love or money last year where somebody didn't handle things right with you, there may be a bit of a resetting of that karma in April, right? Or if you were the one who did, something maybe that you shouldn't have done in love or money last year, you may find that you have to, pay it back, so to speak, right? There's got to be some kind of retribution that will come up in April. And also the idea of things you thought you could avoid having to say, right? Like broken promises, ghosting people, not giving an explanation. You thought you could get away with saying or not saying it, like, oh, well, I thought I could get away with not saying the truth, or I thought I could get away with not having to apologize. But you can't, and it's going to come find you in April, or the other person or situation that was involved is going to come find them. So don't think that some of that old karma from last year is just going to walk out the door unscathed. It won't, right? And another interesting thing about April is this idea of destined conversations, certain things that just had to be said or people you had to meet. So again, this idea of retribution, you thought you could avoid the conversation, but then there you are running into that person at the airport or at a restaurant of all places, right? And so now you have to face them or they have to face you and just say something about it, right? And also positive destined conversation, like how crazy that I just ran into this person at an airport or a restaurant and they're offering me a job opportunity, or they referred me to a huge client, or they wanted to invite me to this really, VIP special event, right? Like how crazy that we would be in the same place at the same time and just end up sitting next to each other and talking. So really look out for some truly destined conversations in April. The other cool thing about April is something happens that hasn't occurred in 83 years. It's a really special alignment between Jupiter and Uranus in the constellation of Taurus. Jupiter is the lucky symbol, and Uranus is the symbol of surprises, right? So luck and surprise meeting up. This is often connected to divine interventions, synchronicities, unexpected windfalls, little miracles, all those kinds of things. And it is in the constellation of Taurus, which is one of the financial signs. So interestingly, the last time that this happened, This alignment actually brought the end of the Great Depression. So it helped to uplift the American economy and bring us back into a time of prosperity. So there might be some major wealth upgrades for certain people that happen in April, especially if it's like making money in new and unexpected ways. So remember, one of the themes at the beginning of the year that we talked about was side hustles, entrepreneurial endeavors, freelance work, shifting into more online business, doing extra things. So these wealth upgrades may or may not per se be in your everyday traditional job, certainly could be. But if you've been working on one of those side hustles or investment opportunities, you might find in April that it's really picking up some financial speed and something great could happen for you, which is awesome. There will also likely be some major economy shifts. Again, talking about the idea of like, what is currency? So when we're watching the news, I think people really remember like when Bitcoin got super popular for a while and then it had like this major crash. And then there were all these other types of cryptocurrencies and people were trying to understand how to work with each of the different currencies. So more of that discussion, like what is money, will come to us in April. And there might be some really shocking ups and downs in the stock market in April. Like, for example, I think we remember that time, it was like a year and a half ago when suddenly like Bitcoin like crashed overnight. And I can't remember, it was one of the other coins like went up like incredibly. So yeah, keep an eye out for major money shifts in the market in April. So for some people, I also think April is a month where some people might be moving soon, either like in April or May. And other people, there might be a property or a land acquisition in April. Again, not for everybody, but for those who have their eye on opportunities like that, it may come to fruition at that time for you. And again, the Ouroboros cycle, remember we talked about the dragon is eating its own tail, meaning major beginnings or endings, but no matter what, life always goes on. So Jupiter, that planet of expansion and luck, it's ending its 1 year stay in Taurus. It came into that position in 2023. So you may find as it's leaving Taurus and shifting into Gemini, which we'll talk about for May, there could just be some major beginning or ending in your life. And again, beginnings and endings don't always have to be bad. It just means that they're significant and they stand out as a major life adjustment for you. All right, so May. I'm calling May the most important month of 2024 for lots of reasons. So May is big ideas, new deals, and really feeling like fate is totally being fast forwarded. Okay. April and May together have a lot of acceleration energy where life feels to be moving very fast. So let's look into it. In May, it's going to be very important that you keep an open mind to anything that's possible, right? Even if it's not something that was you thought aligned with your plan, but then it comes to your doorstep and turns out to be beneficial from you. I know a lot of you who are in our classes and follow me online saw a great example of this kind of like last year for me when unexpectedly in the same month I got called to be in a movie and I also got called to be the spokesmodel of a perfume brand, right? And both of them dealt with like outer space and cosmology, and it was so interesting because I did not seek nor volunteer myself for either of those opportunities. They're not things that I never would have thought I would do. And yet, when they came knocking at my door, they were certainly aligned with my brand and things that I do and my vision. And they were wonderful experiences. They were wonderful income. They were a wonderful opportunity. So seriously, in May, some wild shit might happen in a good way. So be open to big new ideas. Think outside of the box. There will definitely be new contracts, deals, and agreements. Like people are going to be signing paper. That could be a new job. That could be a new house. That could be a new, financial opportunity, whatever it is. But things are going to get penned into ink in May for sure. There will definitely be continued wealth upgrades and financial transitions. So for some people, that's a continuation from April. And for some people, that's just something completely new that's coming in during May. So, April and May, hopefully very good for money for us. Beginning a relationship, like being lucky in love. This is another one of those months where like it could happen for some folks. or certainly the up leveling of a relationship, like getting engaged, getting married, moving in together, having a baby, right? Those kinds of things that we do. So really just fantastic. Some unexpected, again, surprises in love or money, right? You're just staying open to the possibilities. And for some people, again, May could be a month where they move if you're looking to, right? This April, May timeframe. And for a lot of other people, like quick trips here and there, there's a lot of busyness and buzzing around and things that are going. So also in May, the feeling of like accelerating towards the future, right? Almost like, sorry, but I gotta go, right? This unexpected opportunity or this wonderful new client or this wonderful new relationship or this wonderful new house in this other place that I want to be or this amazing new trip that dropped into my lap overnight. And I've just got to hurry up and I've got to get on the train of destiny. You know, maybe I don't have time to explain it to you. Maybe I barely have time to pack, right? But I just feel compelled I have to go do this, right? So pressing that gas button in society, we'll definitely see the explosion of digital business, social selling, online education, the information economy, because Jupiter, that planet of luck, growth, and expansion, will be shifting into the communication constellation of Gemini for an entire year. So if you in your business, right? Like, how can your business become more digital? How can you become a more astute social seller, whether that's, you know, your email list, social media platforms, networking events? Online education is really going to boom. More and more content creators, independent course creators, lots of business offerings, you know, even corporate trainings that are available online, and just the information economy, right? You should have a blog or a website or a newsletter where you're sharing your individual expertise about what you know, because the world is going to be hungry to hear it. And there could be some good money to be made in that. So don't miss out just because you don't know how to press the buttons and you're not online. This idea of the end of traditional religion as we know it, right? And the unstoppable momentum of non-denominational spirituality. Okay, Neptune, one of our symbols of the ephemeral, one of the symbols of spirituality, is at what's called the anaretic degree. It's just a fancy term for saying it's at the very, very tail end of its journey through one constellation. And starting next year, it's going to begin a long-term journey through a different constellation. So it's at 29 degrees this year. So the term anaretic degree literally means some kind of sealing of fate or sealing of destiny, because whatever that planet wanted us to learn while it was there, we better have it figured out because it's going to move on soon to a different place in the sky. And so I really think that, again, things like, you know, Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism or all the world religions are not going to disappear overnight, but we won't understand them in the traditional literalist ways that we have, right? Because as things like AI or extraterrestrial life or psychedelics or discovering consciousness, you know, become a reality, the way we think of God or the soul or even like time, like eternity or time, timelessness, are going to begin to shift. So some of the traditional lenses with which we have understood the world's great religions are going to have to expand, because we're going to be like, that doesn't make sense to read it in that way for us anymore. So we're definitely going to see a shift starting this year and next towards just maybe like a broader interpretation of many of the world's great religions, and a pull towards non-denominational spirituality, right? People not wanting to per se put a label on what they believe. And so, yes, possibly the most important month of 2024. I will say too, so right around April, May, for those of you that are in class and come to sessions, this is a really good time for a seasonal session if you haven't done it already, because of course, with the retrogrades, the eclipses, the big shifts, that means life is going to be changing a lot for you. I would say particularly if you've never done like a prosperity session where we look at your financial indicators, like what are the best way for you to make money? What are your most profitable talents and gifts? And like what are times during the year when you're going to be most successful? That's a great session to do around this time. And for those of you where maybe like there's a lot going on in your love life during this time period, then definitely do either a relationship reading or a couple session to understand what are your relationship patterns and also what's the timing of when love enters and exits your life. So Just a little tip for that April-May timeframe for those that I work with pretty consistently. Okay, cool. June, karmic relationships, luck, love, and temptation are our themes. Ha ha ha. I think June is also one of my favorite months of the year just because I like the topic. So June 4th is what I'm calling the luckiest day of the year. It has some incredibly favorable alignments. So in my book, if you were to plan a business launch, or you had to sign a major contract or make some kind of huge decision, if you were going to propose to someone, right around June 4th would be super fantastic for that. And June 20th, the longest day of the year, the summer solstice, right? So we've got the luckiest day of the year and the longest day of the year in June. So our themes, putting structure around our ideas and contracts and deals that are taking flight, right? Things that this year, a lot of new business opportunities, creative ideas, right, are all taking off, but we've got to have some money, time, expectations, rules, boundaries around it. Otherwise, you're going to have what's the saying? Ideas are a dime a dozen, but people that can make them happen are incredibly rare. It's some kind of quote like that. But yeah, otherwise you're going to have all these great opportunities or ideas that really come alive for you this year, and then nothing's ever going to really come of it because you don't have the foundations to execute it. So June will help you put in those foundations to execute it. Again, life feels really sweet in June, kind of like Marchish, right? Life feels very, very sweet, but savor it while it lasts. There's a few things coming in the summer, so you're going to want to savor this June feeling while it's there. And there are going to be some favorable things in money or love, again, like great progress points happening in June. Now, for some people, there's going to be the feeling of karmic relationships or fated falling in love. So particularly if you're single, this could feel like you were destined to meet this person, right? It could be some really like wild way that you guys met, like, how impossible that we would meet in this way. So surely, we're meant to be together. So really a sense of fated relationships. And for those who, are maybe in a committed relationship, that doesn't mean you may not feel that you're meant to have a fated relationship elsewhere. So you're going to have to figure out how to handle that should that experience or emotion come up, right? Like you could be in a committed relationship, but something happens where you just feel like you think you're destined to have an interaction with this other person, and you have to navigate how you're going to handle that in your primary relationship. So the other interesting thing with love, payback is a bitch. So there is a shadow of some romantic karma for some people that could come back to haunt them starting in June and over the summer. If there's any kind of unresolved business regarding affairs, experiences of the other person or the other woman, whether that's you were that or that happened to you or whatever it is, an unresolved romantic rage at past wrongdoings, like somebody burned you in the past and you're still holding it out against them, and you got to move past that so that you can welcome with a whole open heart, a new relationship into your life. And also romantic wrongs that need to be righted. So especially note the date October 2023. So for some people, going back to that, October-ish timeframe and going, was it you? Was it them? Maybe there needs to be a conversation or a course correction or rectification in some way. But I will definitely note that one of the themes for 2024 is actually 2023 karma, and I will say payback is a bitch. The other interesting thing about June is that temptation is going to take a different tone. There's a shift with one of the feminine asteroids, Lilith. And so now what will happen for almost the next year, starting in June, is that what we are most attracted to or allured by, including lured away from perhaps our primary relationships, is going to come in the form of sweet, innocent charm. It's going to look like wholesome romance, perhaps in the form of the creative artist or the beauty queen or the Prince Charming archetype. So watch out, because innocence is going to appear very irresistible to many people from June through next year, right? It's this idea that what you're falling in love with or becoming intrigued by is smiling at you with a silver dagger in their velvet glove with a little bow on top, right? So you never see it coming, or your partner or your marriage never sees it coming. So be on the lookout in June. There's a lot happening underneath regarding relationships. All right, cool. We're almost to the half point of the year. So let's take a look at July. I'm going to check the chat real quick. How are we doing? Hi, Deepa. Nice to see you. I'm glad you tuned in. Everyone good in the chat? Yes, thumbs up. Somebody has their volume on. I don't know. If you have your volume on, just remember to mute yourself. Okay, great. Awesome. So July, over and under. Oh, actually, you know what? I do. I want to mention this for our June theme, just because I really enjoy doing this type of session. So again, June, because there's a lot happening in love, is another great time to come in for either a relationship reading. If you're single and dating, you can always bring me the birth information of prospects that you're considering, and I can look at them and tell you, who might be most aligned as a partner for you, looking at relationship timing. Another great time for a couple session if you're with a partner. And one of my favorite sessions to do has to do with the feminine archetypes. And this is great, actually, whether you're a man or a woman, because we can look at certain indicators to see how you seduce, who you are most likely to seduce or be seduced by, and also the person you're most likely to cheat with, or the person your partner is most likely to cheat with. Yes, I do look into those things. So if you're curious about any of those topics, June can be a really delicious time to do one of those sessions with me, and that's always really fun. All right. July, over and under. So there's some holes in our ship, but we haven't sank yet. Okay, we're still sailing. Yes. So July is one of those months where it kind of is going to look fine on the surface, but very subtly underneath, there are some things that aren't quite working for us, but we're kind of trying to like doggy paddle, like, no, it's all fine. This job is fine, or this relationship is fine, or this house is fine, and we're just making it work, right? But underneath, there's these little holes in the ship or in the Ziploc bag, right? And those are going to get bigger as time goes on. So July, things appear to be working on the surface, right? But something is simmering underneath. And what you, or let's say the other person or the company, right, is going to do is they're going to try to beat you over the head with extra flair and extra effort to cover up the gaps, right? So maybe that's you, or maybe that's this other person or organization, right? Like, no, everything is great. We're so happy. I love you so much. Here's the flowers, or, here's your bonus. Don't give up on the company, even though I'm a terrible boss. Just stay working for me, right? That extra flair effort to sort of get people to not notice that there's holes at the bottom of the ship, okay? There might be a few punches that get thrown during July, but you're still showing face. You're like, no, I didn't just get smacked. It's okay. No, this relationship is fine. This job is fine. This whatever is fine. So yeah, you're still trying to hold face, or that other person or maybe the organization is still trying to hold face, even though there's something a little like, not working out quite right. So there could be some fresh bruises, or the idea that old wounds or former drama is resurfacing from problems that we thought we could walk away from unscathed, again, going back to last year, particularly from July to December. So for some people, it could be just a new situation this year, 2024, work, business, money, love, whatever it is, where we're like, kind of just trying to make it work, even though I can tell there's a few things that aren't working out, but we're just trying to make it through and keep paddling. Or it could be old stuff, right? Like that relationship drama, or that job drama, or that house drama, whatever it was from last year. You thought, or they thought, that they could just sort of let it go and walk away from it and not ever have to be bothered by it again, but it might start seeping up through the holes a little bit in July, okay? And remember, again, in July, we'll do our Ameriscope class, right, where we look at predictions for the United States. Okay, August, resistance. Actually, the resisting of resistance, which creates even more resistance, is what's happening. And the themes of denial, sexual chemistry, and constraints. So we have our summertime Mercury retrograde in August. So naturally, it can bring just some little hiccups or delays. Retrogrades only last about 3 weeks. But could be slowing down on a contract, could be that flat tire on your way to an important meeting, whatever it is, right? So just little hiccups or delays naturally could happen. But the question to really ask yourself in August is, what isn't working, particularly in a relationship or in a financial situation? You keep trying to kick the can down the road and still pressing the gas pedal, again, like, oh, don't worry, it's all fine. It's all fine. We're going to make it. And the weird thing about August is you might actually make some progress. So you're trying to kick the can down the road, and oddly enough, you do. So it appears that it's working, right? But does that just mean you're actually saving the failure or the letdown for later because you're kind of denying something in the present? Like it's not perfect and it needs some fixing, but you're trying to just boop it on down the road. So be careful. You might trick yourself into thinking it is all fine and working out because you are actually making progress with it, or another person or situation that you're keeping your eye on. Our growth plans are going to get a little shortcutted by practicality. Again, a lot of 2024 is these really sensational opportunities that come our way that feel big and sweeping and full of momentum and seem to sort of take flight very quickly. But then there's these checkpoints throughout the year that say, hey, buddy, slow down. Like you need some boundaries, some rules, some foundations, a bit of a plan. So this is another one of those months where your growth plans are going to come into check. And again, that's always good because we can only have success within a certain amount of, foundational rules. Another thing in August, particularly in relationships, even in the relationships that are struggling a bit during August, it can be hard to see clearly because there's also some strong sexual chemistry. So this won't be for everyone. If your relationship is going great, then it's going great, right? But for those who are experiencing a challenging relationship in August, it may be hard for you to admit that there are holes in the bottom of the ship that could eventually sink the ship if they are not dealt with, because what you're feeling is such an intense attraction to this person, even if you're irritated by them right now or frustrated with the relationship. So be aware that sexual chemistry can kind of be blinding in terms of your wise judgment about how you need to deal with that certain relationship. Okay. September. All right. September is another one of those really interesting months that I found juicy. September's theme is transmutation, psychic senses, a new dream, and affairs. I always love the juicy months, don't I? Okay. Particularly in politics, there's going to be, I think, quite a connection between September and November. So all of a sudden in September, some older ideologies kind of creep into our social scene and our political scene, a bit more of a conservative swing. And I don't just mean that word politically, right? Could be just that feeling of, whether it's religiously, socially, et cetera, just a bit more of a traditional viewpoint seems to sweep back in from September to November. And this could also be in your personal worldview for you individually, right? Particularly things on success. If you suddenly feel like, I have been putting effort into these entrepreneurial ideas all year and just, I don't feel like it's taking off for me. So maybe I should just shut it all down, right? Maybe I should just go back to that corporate 9 to 5, or maybe I should just give up on it. I wanted to, expand my relationship point of view, but it feels too like wild and crazy out here. So maybe I'm just going to go back to that safe relationship that I know, even if it doesn't really inspire me, right? So beware, right? Be mindful of those old outlooks, that more safe or traditional viewpoint swinging back in, right? So again, corporatocracy, traditional lifestyles that suck the life out of you, religiosity, right, versus like kind of non-denominational spirituality, and like classic materialism. Well, you know, at least I'll keep the house and the car, and I'll keep the job with the good money, even if I like hate everything else about my life, right? All of a sudden, this seems like a really familiar friend if you've started doubting your creative power over the year, or if you took on too many new things too fast, right? And it suddenly feels scary. It's like, let's just go back to the safe thing that we know. So watch out for that. And even in our culture, right? And again, the closer we're getting to our election, I think we'll see a lot happening in media, social media, political discussions, where between September and November, we may just see that sense of perhaps in the first part of the year, people were more attracted to someone that seemed like liberal or forward thinking or progressive or spiritual or whatever, you know, more kind of like open-minded label we want to give in politics, religion, you know, outlook. And then all of a sudden it's like there's a bit of a backlash of like, ooh, maybe that was too much too soon. Let's go for the safe route. Another thing in September is you're gently starting to let go of plans and people that aren't working out, even if they don't know yet that you're letting them go, right? So for some people, you know, that job doesn't know that you're looking around at other job opportunities, or that person you've been seeing doesn't know that like maybe you're not planning on inviting them to Thanksgiving, right? So you're kind of pulling away from certain things that aren't working out, but you haven't officially perhaps cut things off or let anyone know. Another interesting thing about September is there does appear to be a new dream that emerges for many of us. We kind of have one big vision at the beginning of the year, and that like January, February timeframe. And for some people, it really hits in April and May with that Jupiter transition. But something about September is you have a new idea or a new vision for your life, and it may actually not look like what you thought about at the beginning of the year. So you may feel like you ended up in 2024 with like two different life plans or two different business plans or two different vision plans, right? And there is something very psychic about September. So notice your dreams, notice the sixth sense feelings, notice unusual coincidences and experiences that are happening. Be very, you know, go ahead and be woo-woo about it, right? See where your intuition is leading. Things might be, yeah, like interesting. Like the universe is very much putting things in front of you if you are allowing yourself to be a little out there and see it. So that transmutation will happen. So this is another in relationships. It's another dicey month for relationships. Affairs could be a very strong temptation for some people. Again, this is not all people. Not everybody is going to be having an affair. But for some, there could be a strong temptation. Of course, the question is always what you do, whether or not you act on that temptation. And the interesting thing about September is for a lot of people, this affair interest might be a previous partner. You know, you divorced your ex-wife or ex-husband and you're seeing someone new, and then all of a sudden you're attracted to your ex-wife or ex-husband again, or your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, or, you know, whatever the situation is. So it could be a previous partner. And some people who have had experiences of being the other person, they might get that karma served back to them around September, right? So yeah, cheaters beware in September. Handle your bedroom ethics with great care during the month of September. And this will be interesting too. There's a theme that starts in September that's really going to become exacerbated in December, which is this tension between traditional male-female gender dynamics. In September, we're really going to start feeling the drumbeat of women being unhappy about how men are acting. And that's not just in a sexual or romantic context, right? The traditional stereotypes that we've held in our culture of, you know, men being in charge and, you know, thinking about money and work and being unemotional and, you know, being leaders and, you know, whatever, and women having these certain stereotypes. I think a lot of the women are getting fed up with that. It's not working in our modern world. And a lot of the men are getting fed up with it too, because it puts them in a box that they don't want to be in. So there's some serious tension beginning in September we're going to highlight more in December around are these traditional gender dynamics and stereotypes really serving us? And what does maybe the new dynamic need to look like? So, October. All right, before we go into fall, I'm going to check real quick. Chat, everyone's looking good? Yes, amazing. Good, good, good. So October, the theme is bloom, love, and lightness. This is one of the easier months. This kind of feels like March again. So relationships improve during October, especially if there was any little hiccups, during the earlier part of the summer. So relationships will bloom. So smoothing things over if there was any hiccups for some people who are, happy in a relationship, you could have in October a really powerful turning point. Again, another up leveling, getting engaged, married, house, whatever that means to you, an up leveling of the relationship in October. And again, if you're single, right, this could be a month where you meet a prospect, right? So something could come to life for you in October. And again, things kind of got a little heavy towards the end of summer in that August, September timeframe, but they're going to feel much lighter in October. And there could be some connection to people or plans from March, right, that are moving forward. So October is one of our easy months. Love that. November is what I'm calling Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Yes, that's also a play on the movie, okay? And the theme is swing. I chose that word because there's an unpredictability about what's going to happen in November, and not just regarding the US election, but we are going to talk about that now. So there's a sense of we don't know which way things are going to go, right? And something could pop up at any moment, right? So Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. This is where the socio-political scene that had swung conservative since September might suddenly at the last minute in November swing more liberal. Why? Because it went kind of conservative when Pluto briefly, just for a few months, dipped back into the old sign of Capricorn, but then it bounces back in November and says, no, we're doing Aquarius, we're doing the Dwapara Yuga, we're doing all that moving forward, right? So November, of course, in the United States is our election day. And, people are always wondering, which side are we going to vote on as a country? And I think that all of a sudden there's going to be that conservative swing. And then right around November, we might be surprised where things kind of open up or become a little bit more liberal again. So it'll be really maybe like last minute unexpected to see which direction we vote in November. The good news is that the actual US election day looks unintercepted, meaning there's not a lot of major interference around it. When I had done the Trump-Biden election predictions, and I had done a class on that actual election day had a Mercury retrograde and all these other things that showed us, for those who remember from that class, that there was interference in that election, right? And I had said very clearly in my predictions regarding Trump and Biden that there is going to be misinformation and wrong counting and like untruthfulness on that election date, just indicated by the alignments that were happening. So it was a very unclear election date, meaning we weren't really kind of sure who was being honest or how things were being counted. So the good news is that this election day coming up looks relatively unintercepted. So whatever the result is, hopefully it should be pretty clear for us. And I brought up Trump here. Again, we won't know until closer to November who will actually be the final closest candidates in the running. So that'll make sense for our July class because we'll have more information at that time. But I bring up Trump because a lot of people consider him a very controversial figure in American politics, and they are curious about him, and they are curious if he is going to make another attempt at the election this year. And I will say that his chart looks good for possibly winning, should he make it that far, right? Should he make it to that place in the running? But I actually am concerned about his life because he does have indicators for possible assassination attempts. So we'll explore that closer to the July class. Again, we'll have more political information at that time. We'll be further in the year, and there's a class entirely dedicated to that, but I know people are curious. So good news is US election day looks unintercepted and very clear. So we should hopefully get clear results. And yes, for those who are curious about one of the very controversial candidates, I do think his chart has a strong attempt for successfully running and winning, but I do yeah, I do think that unfortunately, it's always sad to say that about an individual, but people might be trying to, stop him from doing that by trying to kill him. So, other things is war drums start beating in November, regardless of who is elected. Okay, so let me be very clear. Whichever candidate gets into office, there is an energy with the planet Mars that begins in November and then really accelerates in December, meaning if this candidate gets in, that side's not happy. If this candidate gets in, that side's not happy. So no one is going to be happy no matter who wins, because our country is very divided right now. And within the next 2 years, as we head towards 2026, we're actually repeating similar transits to that of the American Civil War. So we're just going to be dealing with that energy in November, and certainly, as we'll talk about December through February, of just, being unhappy about whoever wins. And there's also the energy of war in the air in general, not just internally within the United States, like being unhappy with each other, but those flare-ups, right? Obviously, everything that's happening in Palestine or Russia, Ukraine, the Chinese, all these other things, it's really going to pick up towards the end of the year. In our personal life, even though we may have gotten scared September, October, November, been like, no, I want to go back to the safety zone or live my old conservative safe life. The good news is that beginning in November, freedom and individuality and originality are like interesting to us again. We're like, never mind, I want to go back to how I felt at the beginning of the year, where I was brave and ready to do new and exciting things. So that's great. There's also a bit of a revisit to the holidays of 2023, because there's a Mercury retrograde that kind of repeats. So look back at plans and people and situations that happened in December 2023. You may find in November and December of this year that there's a bit of a loop back, a little bit of a boomerang. Similar things come up again. And in November overall, there's a lot of surprise and suspense. So it's very much a swing month. Okay, before we come to the last month, I'm going to check the chat. We're almost there. Deepa, thank you for letting me know we're good. Everybody's good in the chat. Cool. All right, we've made it. So December, our theme is battle cry, war, right? That can mean literally, metaphorically, symbolically, right? War. There's a lot happening with the men, the energy of waiting, delayed action, and some serious karmic retribution from summer 2023. Okay. So in December, many of us are going to be wanting to take another big step in life, move forward, start new things, create new progress, but there will be some delayed action, right? So there's like pressing the gas pedal and the brake at the same time. So something that we're really excited or desiring to get started, but then even just circumstance, situation is forcing us to press the brake. This will be having a Mars retrograde. We'll actually have a double retrograde in December between Mars and Mercury. So Mars is one of our action planets. It brings energy and vitality and forward movement. And when he goes retrograde, what does that do? It says lack of energy or forward movement, right? Like stalling. So a sense of stalling a little bit in December. Rage, unresolved rage, finally coming out to air the dirty laundry in our life, because we cannot have peace sometimes without war, right? So what we may find in December is that if there have been certain situations throughout the year, could be in work, could be in our family life, could be in relationship, whatever, where we've been really upset, frustrated, but we have not properly expressed that to the world. This is going to be the time, December, January, and February, when it comes out, right? And anger, when it's used constructively, anger can actually be really constructive. Anger can also be used destructively, which is the way we don't want to use it. But healthy anger is constructive because it lets us know, it's like our alarm system that lets us know something isn't right, and it can bring us back to center to talk about the issues that aren't right so that we can make them right and we can feel at peace again, right? So there will be unresolved rage or frustration that finally reaches its boiling point in December. Be one of those people that uses it in a constructive way, right? Constructive to bring us back to our inner peace. Now, the war drums, right? US civil unrest post-election, like I said, no matter who wins, nobody's going to be happy. So there will just be that sense of, you know, somehow I don't like who's in office. But the world wars, right, heating up, these other international flare-ups that have been boiling throughout the year, some of them are already on our plate now, that Mars retrograde energy is going to turn up the fire. So lots of fires that we're going to have to put out. Another thing is endings, right? That Mercury retrograde and winter solstice. So there could be some endings during the month of December. And there's a lot going on finally with this male-female dynamic, right? These traditional gender roles that kind of aren't perhaps serving us in the same way in our modern contemporary society. It also comes to a boiling point during December. And remember, we talked about that a little bit in September. We said something's coming with this. Well, it's going to explode in December. And I will say this, the men are going to be in the hot seat in December, January, and February. Women, a lot of women last year, when that Venus retrograde hit in the summer, had a hard time. Well, things are coming to roost for the guys, right? So the universe treats everyone with an equal opportunity. So our men are going to be undergoing a transformation. What does it mean to be a man? What is my definition of masculinity? What is my role in society? Especially with the rise of the she economy. I loved it. It was a term coined by Forbes magazine when they were talking about how within the next 10 years, the rise of female power in the economy is going to really continue, shifting our social dynamics in a powerful way. At this point, and what they're projecting will continue is women in at least, the modern Western world are going to start out earning men, right? So men, we have always associated with the pocketbook, right? Well, now the women are going to be making more money than the men. Women live longer than men, right? So the guys are going to die first. We're going to outlive them. Women are choosing to either not marry and not have children, or they are waiting until later in life. So they're like, I'm not doing this with you anymore, or, I'm going to wait until later. A lot of women are choosing to live alone. And the ones that choose to have children are also choosing to have children on their own, whether that's adoption, in vitro fertilization, being single moms post-divorce. So the whole idea of the man being the head of the household or the leader of a family is really shifting because a lot of women are going, I don't need you to do that. Sexual revolution, right? Men have traditionally often also been attached to their penises and hold great pride in that. But in today's world, with the advent of birth control and sex toys, as women are going, I don't even need you for that anymore, right? So we have more women graduating from university than men as well. So they're more educated. And then on an emotional level, women are also happier and more evolved. Men have a higher suicide rate, men have a higher addiction rate. So what's happening is this disproportionate shift of traditional gender dynamics, where really the women are outpacing the men. And so what is our definition? What is our role? What is our importance for men and women and how we understand those roles? It's really going to come under question, December, January, and February. And what I would say too is this is not a time to poo-poo the men of our society whatsoever. It's a time to say, we as a community need to show up and support our men, right? Like we need to support them in mental health care and in, their personal development. We need to support them into shaping other aspects of their identity. We need to support and encourage them to find new ways to express themselves. They are incredibly important in our society and in our world. And so the idea that they are falling behind or underperforming is actually not okay. We don't want that. We want all members of our society to be high performing and to be taken care of. So it'll be really interesting to see what's going on with the men during the months of December, January, and February. So also in December, Christmas Eve, a very rare alignment between Jupiter and Saturn. Something will happen for a lot of people. A sense of judgment or finality or major decisions will happen right around Christmas. And for some, the ghosts of Christmas past. The ghosts of Christmas past come in the form of karma from summer 2023. I got to tell you, that double retrograde between Venus and Mercury last year, right? July, August, and September, that was really hard for a lot of people. Just tough stuff was happening in life. And those situations that we thought we could walk away from, or that those who, hurt us thought that they could just walk away from, so much of 2024 is about that coming back to roost. So even in December, January, and February, those ghosts from Christmas past, right? Those things that we just thought we'd hop and skip over, or that somebody else thought they would hop and skip over and never have to face, guess what? It's coming for you, right? Because the universe is all about balance and wants to right those wrongs and return to a space of equanimity. So with that in mind, my friends, are there any questions about the year ahead? Any questions about the year ahead? You're welcome to put it in the chat or take yourself off unmute for a second if you want to ask any questions for our class. And then if not, I love it. Amen. Thank you, Deepa. I'm assuming that was maybe about like the battle cry for awakened men theme. Not sure. Thank you, Michelle. Awesome. Any questions? And then we have an announcement. Yes, no, maybe so, no questions. Okay, cool. So quick class announcement before the end. So again, at the beginning of the year here, single sessions and coaching programs, right? So what I would say is everybody will be receiving an email after this for a discounted session, right? Because you came to class and that's your gift. And everyone else who didn't come to class and played hooky, well, then they don't get their gift, right? So you came to class, so you'll get an email from me that gives you a discounted session for you to use this month. It can be on any of these topics we've discussed, right? So when we were talking about money, like the prosperity points, knowing your financial indicators, that's a great session. Your 2024 annual overview, so you can see your whole plan based on your individual birthday of what's happening for you. That's a great session idea. It is February, so Valentine's or relationship reading could be a great idea for you as well, whether you're single or in a relationship. I know we've got a few people who are coupledoms on our class today, so couple sessions can also be really lovely in February. Yeah, so anyways, you get your discounted session. It can be any of the topics we've discussed. And if you haven't yet enrolled in a coaching program for this year, I know many of you are already in our programs, but there's still time. So if you're like in the phase of your life where you're doing a lot of self-discovery, and you want to kind of know, who am I and what is meant for me? What's my life purpose? How do I make the choices that are aligned to my unique energy pattern so that I can attract the right people and opportunities? Then totally do the life purpose program. That's a great fit for you. We can chat and I can send you more information about that, but it's 12 sessions and it discovers your life purpose, values, boundaries, relationship patterns, prosperity indicators, all the things. And there's some really amazing books, podcasts, and videos that go in addition to our 12 sessions together. So I've got Caroline Meese, Sacred Contracts, James Hillman's The Soul's Code. We've got some Tony Robbins in there. We've got some Dr. John DeMartini, the world's #1 human behavioralist. So like really great stuff in between our sessions for you to explore. So if like you're having that feeling, life is fine, I'm fine, but I kind of want something more and I really want to step into my potential, Life Purpose Program, totally your jam. If you are the busy person, you're the busy bee, right? You're focused on maybe family, career, multitasking, you travel a lot, you're balancing a lot of things all at once. And maybe there's a lot of people who rely on you to make really good decisions. And quite frankly, you just don't have time to waste and you want somebody to tell you what is going to happen for you every month and give you a plan. Then the Divine Timing Program is the space that you need to be in. The whole point is that every single month we predict your future so that you can plan your life. Yes, that means I really do look at every single day of your life for 30 days ahead. And I give you a plan of when business decisions, relationship stuff, travel, dates to watch out for, good days, all of that. And we talk about what's coming up in business, your personal life, as well as oftentimes like spiritual tests that may happen for you during that month. And it comes with, other great activities and rituals. So if you're the busy person and you just want someone to tell you what to do for the month ahead, Divine Timing Program, that's your jam. And then if you're The emerging professional, right? Maybe you have a management or leadership position or an executive position, and you're focused on cultivating your leadership style. Conscious Leadership Program is totally the space for you. So this is, we look based on your unique birth pattern. We look at your executive energy, your leadership archetypes, your prosperity indicators. We look at how you can manage people from other leadership archetypes so that you can get the results you want from them, especially if you lead a team. There's some great books that we include with this one. Again, there's some Tony Robbins in there, some Dr. John DeMartini, Esther Perel, the world's #1 relationship therapist, right? How do we navigate with other people and all those kinds of things. So if you're really wanting to kind of take your career to the next level and improve your leadership style, then this would be the right space for you. So, my friends, if you have any questions about any of that, or you're not sure what session you should do, or you're not sure which coaching program you should be in because you haven't signed up yet this year, we can totally get you aligned and in the right space for you to be in. And if there are no final questions, thank you so much for joining all of us together in class today. As always, this is one of our favorite classes. We do our annual Futurecast at the beginning of the year. We'll do our Ameriscope in July like we always do. And my friends, thank you. Happy Lunar New Year. Happy Year of the Dragon. I'm wishing us all the very best. And I know that I will be seeing pretty much most of you very, very soon. So enjoy the rest of your Lunar New Year, my friends. Thank you so much for coming to class today.